Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Consider Talks podcast. My name is Soroya, and I'm your host for this podcast. Before jumping into the episode, I wanted to make a quick disclaimer of a mistake that I actually made. In the most recent post that I put up on Instagram for the most recent episode, I accidentally put that it was episode 3. It's actually episode 4, and it's a little typo mistake that I made, so I apologize for that, and if that made any type of confusion for anyone who saw that post. So that makes today's episode 5 of season 2 of the podcast. Now, today's topic of the podcast is something that I've been really diving into lately for myself, for my own personal growth, and something that I think a lot of you guys can be able to take away from and learn from. And that topic is solitude, loneliness, isolation. What's the difference between all of them? What do they all mean? And how can they add and take away to your life? Now, before we get into today's episode, I want to introduce our sponsor, Anchor. Solitude, loneliness, isolation. First off, what is the difference between these three things? Let's start off with loneliness. So, loneliness is sadness because one has no friends or company. Also, it is the quality of being unfrequented and remote. So this has to do with more so of a physical location. Isolation. The definition of isolation is the state of feeling alone and without friends or help. And that meaning that is like the state of mind. And the second definition for isolation is being in a place or situation that's separate from others. A big example for this would be COVID, the quarantine that everyone had to do when they would get sick. And even now, people who still catch COVID now, they have to quarantine themselves for a certain amount of days. They have to isolate themselves. So that is a physical form of isolating yourself because you have to, you're forced to. But then there's forms of isolation where people do this on their own because they want to be alone and they don't want to be around people. Now, solitude. The definition of solitude is a state of being alone by choice without feeling lonely. So this goes into the physical and to the mental. Being in a state of lonesome by choice without feeling lonely, this gives you a sense of peace. So being in solitude, you don't feel loneliness because again, loneliness comes from sadness. Solitude comes from a state of feeling content and feeling peaceful about where you are in life, physically, spiritually, emotionally. Although loneliness and solitude are sometimes used interchangeably with one another, they are not the same thing. Loneliness is associated with feelings of unwantedness and emptiness. It's about not being with other people or feeling unwanted by other people. Loneliness is very heavy as much as it's empty. It weighs on our minds and it could also take a physical toll on our bodies. As you can only imagine, loneliness has been correlated with many negative health outcomes, such as mental health disorders, Alzheimer's, high blood pressure, and heart disease. In addition, loneliness involves an involuntary type of social pain caused by a lack of connection, regardless of physical proximity to other people. In other words, loneliness is a sense of isolation that persists even when other people are present. Now, solitude, in contrast, is the choice to be alone and to use that time to either reflect or simply enjoy one's own company. It's about being present with yourself rather than focusing on the lack of company. Many philosophers, such as Aristotle, Epictetus, Montaigne, and Petrarch, all observed and wrote about the benefits of solitude. Aristotle once even noted that contemplative acts should be solitary, free from outside influences. It's in our choice to be solitary that we release our judgment, open ourselves up to our own imagination, and allow our creativity to take charge. In doing so, we open ourselves up to new possibilities, develop stronger problem solving skills, and learn more deeply about ourselves and the world around us. Solitude is a choice. We can ebb and flow between solitude and being social. The option is always there to connect back with other people, and to do so rather seamlessly. Loneliness, in contrast, it cannot be turned on and off. A suggestion that is often very well made by many therapists is that people spend a few minutes alone to themselves. And the most common thing that people say in response, me included, is that I'm either too busy to make time for myself, or I can't sit still. I need to be doing something. I need to be productive. Inserting a little solitude into your overfilled schedule isn't a waste of time. The busier you are, the more likely you are to actually benefit from some quiet time to yourself. There is a multitude of studies out there that actually say the benefits of solitude. One of the benefits is that alone time increases your empathy. When you spend time with a certain circle of friends or your coworkers, you develop a we versus them mentality. Spending time by yourself allows you to develop more compassion for people who may not fit into your inner circle. The second benefit of solitude is that it increases your productivity. Although so many offices have started creating open floor plans so everyone can communicate more easily, studies show that being surrounded by people kills your productivity. People perform better when they have a little bit of privacy. Number 3, solitude can spark your creativity. There's a reason a lot of authors or artists want to go to a cabin in the woods or a private studio to work. Being alone with your thoughts gives your brain a chance to wander, which can help you become more creative. Number 4, being alone can help you build your mental strength. We are very social creatures, and it's important for us to have strong connections with other people. But solitude can be just as important. Studies show that the ability to tolerate alone time has been linked to increased happiness, better life satisfaction, and improved stress management. People who enjoy alone time actually experience less depression. Number 5, solitude may reduce behavior problems in kids. For the parents out there, when you carve some solitude into your schedule, you're showing your children that being alone is a healthy thing to do. And research shows that kids who learn to be by themselves are better behaved than other children. Being a good role model and teaching your solitary skills early to your children can actually be very beneficial for the emotional, cognitive, and even social health in the future. Number 6, being alone gives you an opportunity to plan your life out. Most people spend a lot of time planning weddings, vacations, but they never plan how to get the most out of their life. Spending time alone can give you a chance to ensure that there's purpose to all of your hustling and bustling. Quiet space provides an opportunity for you to think about your goals, your progress, and the changes that you want to make to your life. Number 7, solitude helps you know yourself. Being alone helps you become more comfortable in your own skin. When you're by yourself, you can make choices without outside influences, and that will help you develop more insight into who you are as a person. Now, in case you didn't know, the Bible actually supports the value of solitude and the practice of being in solitude. One of the benefits that it shows in the Bible of solitude is that it brings rewards. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 6, Jesus told his followers, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." This doesn't mean that we should avoid public prayer entirely, but that the greatest reward belongs to the person who seeks and spends time alone with the Father. Jesus said more about solitude than we see in his recorded words because his actions speak at least as loudly on the subject. His example underscores the place solitude played in his life and suggests the place that it should have in ours. The second benefit is that solitude is a worthy priority. Mark's gospel says, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. This is in Mark chapter 1, verse 35. Jesus could have prayed anywhere, of course, and he often did pray in public among crowds, where others could hear and perhaps participate with him. But the Gospels show us that he made solitude a priority. Now, if he made solitude a priority in his life, then shouldn't we? The third benefit that solitude brings is that it provides a perspective. In Luke chapter 6, verses 12 and 13, he describes an occasion when Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray and spent the night praying to God. When morning came, he called his disciples to him and chose 12 of them, whom he also designated as apostles. Facing a big life decision, such as which of his many followers to choose as his closest disciples, Jesus sought solitude and spent the night in prayer and clearly found the perspective he needed to make such a decision. The fourth benefit of solitude is that it aids in recovery from any type of physical activity. In Luke chapter 5, verse 15 and 16, it says, "As Jesus' reputation spread," Luke said, "crowds of people came to hear him and to be healed of their sickness, but Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." Too often, we have this habit of just doing and going on and on and on, nonstop, very much like the Energizer Bunny, to the point of illness or even physical collapse. Jesus knew that solitude is an antidote to activity, aiding a return from chronic, quote-unquote, human doing to our created state of, quote-unquote, human being. The fifth benefit that solitude brings is that it can be healing. Matthew's gospel records, so John the Baptist was beheaded in the prison, and his head was brought on a tray and given to the girl, who took it to her mother. Later, John's disciples came for his body and buried it. Then they went and told Jesus what had happened. And as soon as Jesus heard the news, he left in a boat to a remote area to be alone. This is in Matthew chapter 14, verses 10 through 13. Solitude is a healing place where God can reach us and help us all the more because we are alone with him, with no distractions. Benefit number 6 of solitude is that it prepares us for the impossible. Luke describes Jesus' actions as he faced the most daunting episode of his life in Luke chapter 22, verses 39 through 42. Jesus went out as usual to the Mount of Olives, and his disciples followed him. On reaching the place, he said to them, "Pray that you will not fall into temptation." He withdrew about a stone's throw beyond them, knelt down, and prayed, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." What a lesson there is in those few verses. Jesus wanted his closest friends and their prayer support nearby, even as he sought solitude and communion with his Father. We also may discover when facing an overwhelming task that solitude empowers us to surrender, persevere, and find a strength that we didn't even know we had. Now, with all this information I just shared, the question that's probably at the front of your mind is, how do I even do this? How can I even start to be in a healthy place of solitude for my mental health and also with my relationship with God? I'll help you. So first, I want to get into how you can do it for your mental, emotional well-being. First step is to avoid comparing yourself to others. I know that this is easier said than done. Trust me, I am not only just talking to you, I'm talking to myself. But try to avoid comparing your social life to anyone else's. It's not the number of friends you have or the frequency of your social outings that matters. It's what works for you. Remember, you really have no way of knowing if someone with a bunch of friends and a stuffed social calendar is actually happy. Nowadays, it is a very well-known thing that what a lot of people post on social media is what they want you to see. But behind closed doors, it is a very, very, very different story. Number 2, take a step back from social media. Social media isn't inherently bad or problematic, but if your doom scrolling through your Instagram or TikTok feed makes you feel left out and stressed, then you may want to take a few steps back into the amount of hours you spend looking at social media. That feed doesn't tell the whole story, not even by a long shot. You have no idea if those people are truly happy or they're just giving the impression that they are. Either way, it's no reflection on you. So, take a deep breath and put it in perspective. You can perform a little test run and you can ban yourself from social media for 48 hours. If that makes a difference, try giving yourself a daily limit of 10 to 15 minutes and stick to it. Step number 3, take a break from your phone. Are you noticing a theme here? Cell phones and social media have undoubtedly changed the concept of being alone. Is anybody really alone when they could pick up their phone and text or call just about anyone? Or check in on what that high school acquaintance is up to without even having to talk to them face to face? Next time you're alone, turn your phone off and stash it away for 1 hour. Use this time to reconnect with yourself and explore what it feels like to be truly alone. If you're not sure how to pass the time, you could grab a pen and notepad and jot down some things that you might enjoy doing the next time that you find yourself alone. Number 4, carve out time to let your mind wander. Does the thought of doing absolutely nothing unsettle you? That's probably because it's been a long time since you've allowed yourself to just be. You can experiment by setting a timer for 5 minutes. That's it. Just 5 minutes. 5 minutes with no television, no music, no internet, no podcast, no books. Find a comfortable place to sit or lie down. Close your eyes, darken the room, or stare out the window if you prefer. If that's too sedentary, you could try repetitive tasks like knitting, dribbling a basketball, or washing the dishes, or even cleaning an area of your house that you've been wanting to clean up for the longest time. Let your mind wander. Truly just wander and see where it takes you. Don't be discouraged if it doesn't take you very far at first. With time, your mind will get used to this new sense of freedom that you've created for yourself. Number 5, take yourself on a date. This may sound cliche, I know, but self-dates can be a very powerful tool for learning how to be happy alone. If you're not sure what to do, imagine you're trying to impress an actual date and show them a good time. Where would you take them? What would you want them to see or experience? Now, with that mindset, take yourself on that date. It may feel a bit odd at first, but chances are you'll see at least a few other folks dining solo or purchasing a movie ticket for one. If money is an issue, you don't have to go big. But also remember, it's a lot cheaper to pay for one person than it is for two. If this still sounds too daunting or intimidating, you can start small by sitting in a coffee shop for just 10 minutes. Be observant and soak in your surroundings. Once you're comfortable with that, going out alone won't seem so unusual anymore. Number 6, get physical. Exercise helps to release endorphins. Those are neurotransmitters in your brain that can make you feel happier. If you're new to exercise, you can start with just a few minutes a day, even if it's just morning stretches. Increasing your physical activity by a minute or two each day, it will help you gain confidence. And with that, you can try weight training, aerobics, or sports like basketball, softball, volleyball, any sport. Plus, if you're still uneasy about going out on your own, hitting the gym alone could be a great starting point. Number 7, spend time with nature. Yes, another cliche, I am fully aware, but get outside, lounge in the backyard, take a walk in the park, or hang out by the water. Absorb the sights, sounds, and smells of nature. Let the wind blow in your face and flow through your hair. Research actually shows that 30 minutes or more a week spent in nature can improve symptoms of depression and lower your blood pressure. Number 8, lean into the perks of being alone. A lot of people can find it especially difficult to be happy while living alone. Sure, it might be a little quiet, and there's no one there to listen to you vent after work, or remind you to turn off the stove. But living alone also has its perks. Try to take advantage of the physical and mental space that comes with living alone. You can take up all the space. You can spend the day taking up the entire kitchen to cook a tasty meal you can munch on for the next week. You're able to spread out. If you're trying to get back into a hobby, you can get all your materials and spread them out all across the floor and decide what you want to use for your next project. If you're not done deciding in a single day, then there's no problem. You can leave it out until you're done, even if it's a week from now. You can have a solo dance party. This one is pretty self-explanatory. Put on your favorite music, turn up the speakers, and dance like no one is watching. Because, well, they literally aren't watching. Number 9, volunteer. There are so many ways to volunteer your time in service of others. You can volunteer in person or help out remotely from home. Either way, helping others can make you feel really good. Plus, it can help you feel connected to others while still getting in some quality alone time. You can research volunteer opportunities in your neighborhood. It's important to find something that feels right to you. Make sure that their needs are a good fit with what you're willing and able to do. If the first thing you try doesn't work out, it's perfectly reasonable to move on and look for something else. Performing a random act of kindness whenever the opportunity presents itself is extremely beneficial to your mental well-being. Number 10, acknowledge the things that you're grateful for. Research shows that gratefulness can boost feelings of happiness and hopefulness. It's easy to take things for granted as you go about your day. Devoting some time to reflect on the things that you're grateful for can help you switch that mindset in your brain. You can make a list, whether it be a mental one or a physical one, of the things in your life that you appreciate. And it could be even the little things, like the fact that you have a favorite toothbrush, the fact that you're able to drink a certain amount of water in a day, if you have a goal for how much water you want to drink in a day, the fact that you have a roof over your head, the fact that you have a place to be able to see all the different things that you like to collect. The next time you're alone and feeling down, whip out this list to remind yourself of everything that you have going for you in your life. Number 11, give yourself a break. Self-reflection is such a good thing. Harsh self-judgment is not. It eats away at your self-confidence and your happiness. When that negative inner critic comes to call, turn toward the more positive voice that resides in your head, and you know that it's in there somewhere, so don't doubt yourself about it. Don't judge yourself more harshly than you judge someone else. Everyone makes mistakes, so don't keep beating yourself up over them. Remember the many good qualities that you possess within yourself. Number 12. This is personally my favorite one. Serve yourself a top-notch meal. If you don't have a dinner companion, it's fine. Eating alone doesn't have to mean eating prepackaged food in front of the TV. You could prepare a fabulous meal for yourself. Set the table, use a cloth napkin, light a candle, and do whatever you would do if you were throwing a dinner party. You're worth it all by yourself. Number 13. Find a creative outlet. What have you always dreamed of doing, but you've put it off time and time again? Don't worry if you're not good at it. The point is that you're trying something new and different, so take a step outside of your comfort zone. Take on a home DIY project. Learn to play an instrument. Paint a landscape or a portrait. Write a short story. Do it on your own or enroll in a class. Give yourself ample time to see if it's even worth pursuing. And if you don't like it, you can at least cross it off your list and move on to something else. And number 14, make plans for solo outings. Find interesting things to do and put them on your calendar. Give yourself something to look forward to. After all, anticipation is only half the fun. Plus, seeing it on your calendar might also help you follow through with it. You can visit a nearby town and stay in a bed and breakfast, attend a local festival or a farmer's market, buy a ticket to a concert of that amazing art exhibit everyone's talking about. Plan for something you're really interested in and make it happen. Now we're moving on to the spiritual. The spiritual disciplines of silence and solitude may be very quiet, but they're also so full of adventure. Because God Himself is wanting to meet you there, in the quiet, in the solitude. Whenever you get away from the noise and busyness of life to encounter God through silence and solitude, He'll change your soul in ways that go beyond words. Here are 8 steps to meeting God in silence and solitude. Number 1, pay attention to what's stirring in your soul. Notice whatever feelings are coming up for you, whether it be desperation or desire that you experience at different times in the day. Instead of trying to suppress or run from those feelings, let them motivate you to pursue time with God in silence and solitude. Number 2, incorporate silence and solitude into your life regularly. Choose a regular time and place to get away from life as usual and spend at least 10 minutes in silence and solitude as often as you can. Ask God to help you express your need for Him through a simple prayer, and choose a physical position that will enable you to stay alert yet worshipful. Number 3, overcome resistance. Don't let anything distract you from devoting yourself regularly to times of seeking God in silence and solitude. Entrust each of your current concerns specifically to God in prayer so you can be free to fully be present with Him during solitude and silence. If you're anxious or afraid when you think about spending time in solitude and silence, admit it to God and ask Him to comfort you. Number 4, seek rest for your body, mind, and soul. Pray for the wisdom you need to recognize when you've become dangerously tired, exhausted by life's demands to the point where you can't even hear God's voice speaking to you. Accept God's invitation to rest in His presence during solitude and silence. Rather than showing up tired for your special meetings with God, give your body the rest it needs by getting enough sleep and exercise, eating well, and drinking water regularly. While you're spending time in solitude and silence, take deep breaths and let the peace of God's presence fill your body. Let go of concerns that your mind is trying to hold on to during solitude and silence by opening yourself up to the revelation that comes from beyond your mind, from God Himself, who can speak to you about things that your mind can't figure out, but that your spirit can hear. Ask God to help you quiet your mind and listen to Him with your spirit, trusting that He will respond to your prayer by speaking to you. If grief is weighing on your soul, confess it to God. When your soul feels grateful for God's love, express that gratitude to God. Number 5, let emptiness lead you to God's fulfillment. Don't try to deny or avoid the emptiness that you feel inside sometimes. Instead, recognize that emptiness. It could be good when it motivates you to turn to God to seek fulfillment during your times of solitude and silence. So feel the pain of your emptiness as it carves out space in your soul for you to receive more of God's presence. Number 6, face yourself as you really are and let God help you. Rather than trying to hide from God, denying who you are, or even trying to control what others think of you, allow the truth of who you are to surface during solitude and silence, and face the reality of the person that you see in the mirror every day, flaws and all. Then remember that God loves you deeply and unconditionally, and ask Him to meet you right where you are and help you grow more into the person that He wants you to become. Use whatever painful new knowledge you've gained about yourself to repent from sin and grow closer to God, with the confidence that He will help you every step of the way. Keep in mind that God is for you, with you, and in you when you open yourself up to His powerful presence. So give yourself completely to God, who loves you just as much as you are, but also loves you too much to let you stay as you are. Number 7, receive God's guidance. The more time you spend alone with God in solitude and silence, the more you'll learn how to recognize God's voice and when He speaks to you. Pray for the guidance you need to make wise decisions, and be alert for the Holy Spirit witnessing to your spirit about what is true. Remember that the Holy Spirit will reveal truth to you only as you're able to bear it, so trust God's timing. Lastly, number 8, let the love that you experience in solitude and silence pour out into other people's lives. Each time that you return to life in community with other people after spending time in solitude and silence, draw upon the love that God has given you to love others in the ways He wants you to express love. From speaking kind and encouraging words to serving them when they need help with something. Take what God has given you during your meetings with Him in solitude and silence and use it to bless others when you're with them. We have come to the end of today's episode. To everyone who took the time to listen to this whole episode through, I hope that it has been beneficial and encouraging for you to actually want to look into solitude and to explore the spiritual, biblical, and mental emotional benefits that it can add to your life. Again, thank you for listening to today. Thank you to those who have been following this podcast so far, and hopefully for the new listeners, it'll make you want to follow along. You can listen to Kasugi Talks Pod on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the other places that are listed in the link in the description. Also, make sure to follow Kasugi Talks Podcast on Instagram. The link for that will also be in the description below. God bless, and I will see you in the next episode.